guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pato.
Pato. Pato is COVID adjacent right now, so if he sounds like shit, that's why.
No, I sound like a male phone sex operator.
No, you sound pretty good actually. You sound pretty
I
good.
know.
It's
I'm throwing out the bass tones that made your bits and
ooh,
pieces tingle. Such
really.
as yeah,
Pato's gonna play us some smooth
just
jazz.
what you got to do is you got to play this podcast on a sound system with like a standalone speaker, right? Then put the speaker flat on the floor and then straddle the speaker so the bass of my voice sends vibrations up through the speaker
You
into
guys
the
can't see my
listener.
face right now, but I'm just
Howard Stern did it in
Pat
private
stole
parts.
yeah, Pat stole that from
I didn't come up with that
from
shit.
Howard Stern's private parts. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, good movie, great movie, check it out.
Great movie.
But
Chicks dig filmmakers. Howard Stern started off as a film student. A lot of people don't know that.
well, I mean, I buy it.
Eh.
I buy it. But anyway, well, yeah. So Pat's ill. He's not dying, but he'll be all right. You'll be all
Well,
right.
in the Sylvia Plath sense, we're all kind of dying, but
Oh, I mean, right. One second at a time, sure. Like
right,
from the time
yeah.
you're born, you're dying, right?
No, I'm okay. It was just when I've had like a rough like 5 fucking days. It's been a lot of shit, very little sleep, and it's one of those. And my allergies are kicking my ass, and like I don't know if everything just caught up with me or if because like I was kind of saying before we started, that living in the era of COVID, every time anything happens, you're just like, oh Jesus, do I have it? And I had a friend of a friend pass this weekend, and the dude was vaccinated and in pretty good shape. He was a hockey coach, and kind of like died overnight, wasn't feeling too good on Friday. Went to work on Saturday, was okay. Saturday night had 107-degree temperature. The family took him to the hospital. And he was dead by Sunday. You know, and
Wow.
somebody that was vaccinated and my age and pretty good health. So you hear shit like that, and you're just like, oh my god.
I know, I get it. I mean, that does happen. But you know what the thing is that you do hear about shit like that because it happens so little.
Right, exactly. It's an outlier. And
You know, right.
it's yeah, exactly. That's why you hear about it. That's why everybody talks about it. Not everybody talks about, all the other cases where it kind of comes and goes without incident.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly. I mean, I've got like my friend Shannon. She's got my friend Shannon has restrictive lung disease, and she had COVID before she had a vaccination, and like she was fine. Like she's one of those people that like we thought, well, she gets it, she's dead, that's it, it's over. She's fine.
Right.
It wasn't even
Yeah.
that bad. So it's like, okay, who knows what the fucking standard is for COVID? I don't think we really even know, but we're not talking anymore about COVID.
No, we're not. We're not.
We're gonna get away from that. Just want to let you guys know Pat's not feeling good, so send him your good vibes only. Hashtag
Sure.
good vibes.
And I'll
So
send out the good vibes right back.
all the good vibes in the air, and it'll be good. Is what it'll
Sure.
be. So today, I two time traveling. 2 days ago, it's today. We're recording today. Is Betty and Barney Hill Day.
Yeah.
That's
Happy Interracial Relationship Monday.
yeah. Absolutely. No, I mean, we haven't covered Betty and Barney Hill yet. We will. It's popular. For transparency's sake, we'll pick Betty and Barney Hill in on this day, 60 years ago exactly, in 1961. They were driving home from a vacation and they saw a UFO, and then all of a sudden they had a lapse in time, and they were driving back home. They couldn't really remember, but they knew things were weird and something weird had happened. They knew they'd seen that UFO. They just didn't really know what. And chasing that, it just kind of turned into a long string of high strangeness. They were both regressed. Well, I think Betty ended up recovering her memories on her own. She was having these dreams that she feels are memories of an abduction that they had, and so on and so forth. So, pretty big. I'm sure you guys already know who the hell Betty and Barney Hill are. If you don't know, I don't know. Well, maybe you don't know. Maybe you're new to the show and this is your introduction into high strangeness. I doubt it, but maybe it is.
Right.
And if that's the case, well, you're just going to have to sit tight for another episode because we're not getting into all that today. I just wanted to wish them a happy abduction anniversary. So
There was a TV movie that I remember seeing when I was younger where James Earl Jones played Barney Hill. James Earl Jones, obviously, uh, the voice of Darth Vader and the dad from Coming to America. And yeah, and it was I think it was okay done, like fairly well made. They took it seriously enough. I mean, it didn't have super high production values, and the copy that I had seen definitely looked dated. You know, it probably came out in the 70s, or it had to be like mid 70s. It was definitely pre Star Wars, but yeah, it's a pretty famous story, so it's worth checking out. If you're, for some reason you're listening to the show and you're not familiar with it, uh, definitely look into it because it's a, you know, I saw someone else post on social media today. It's the first recorded abduction experience, which okay, that's pretty groundbreaking. And some of the stuff that they come up with, and I don't want to say lore because it makes it sound like it's not true, but a lot of the stuff that came out of that case is kind of accepted as abduction lore, as like, you know, the cornerstone of that.
the
The
standard.
modern,
Yeah.
yeah, the modern abduction mythology. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but somebody had asked, well, the reason why I don't buy it is because, they were describing the examination and stuff, and the types of things that they were describing were things that they did at the time. So there were no like high tech, like MRIs or scans or anything like that. It was like mostly touch base and this, that, and the other. And it was like, well, yeah, but if we're talking about like these super intelligent beings from a different planet, like it could be that like the scanner is on the fucking door of the craft when you walk in and it scans you and without you even knowing because they're advanced enough to travel space and time. I don't know. There's a lot of things about it that people like to pick apart, but I'm gonna tell you right now. And Pat, you mentioned it. Betty and Barney Hill were an interracial couple, and in the '60s, if you were an interracial couple, you were not doing anything extra to bring attention to you. Like, that's
right,
not, which is always kind of my biggest thing. Now, whether or not their memories were real, whether or not regression is real, sure, that's all up for debate, but something happened. I believe something happened to them. And, whatever those details are, we will never know because they're both dead now. So, there's that,
yeah.
and they
Do
don't
the research, check it out yourself, make up your own fucking mind. Let
check
us
it
know.
out or just wait until we do an episode on it and then let us know. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway, so that was my news for the week. I really didn't have any news because I've been busy. I've been busy.
yes, you have.
I've been very busy. So, you know, um, as you guys know by the title of the episode, I suppose we'll just get into it. If you don't know, I am making a documentary.
Right, that's how we actually connected,
It
was through
is.
the documentary.
It
You had
is.
you had posted something on Twitter looking for
People to help work on it.
collaborators, yeah, and I had lended my editing skills,
Yep, yeah,
and that's how we first started talking.
that is how. Yep, that's true. It's an American tale. It sure is. Yeah, I mean, that's what I think a lot of people don't really know is that like the reason why I got into my career, not into this stuff in general. I've always been into this stuff, but the reason why I'm in the career that I'm in now, being a 4D investigator, is because I started working on this documentary. And I was not supposed to. It was not supposed to be my documentary originally. Actually, it was supposed to be like a 25-minute YouTube video. And the more I got invested into it, the more things just kept getting stranger and stranger, and just the stars aligned, and here I am. So a lot of people, I've had some people refer to me as a podcaster. Don't do that shit. First, don't do that. Don't do that. Yes, I have a podcast. But and yeah, sure, maybe I'm a podcaster, but I'm an investigator first. I'm a filmmaker second, and then okay, then you can call me a podcaster. But I digress. So that's what we're going to talk about today. On my own show, obviously I've talked about the Mothman, but I haven't really gone into great detail discussing the documentary. I guess I just always assume that everybody knows what it is and kind of where we're at and what's going on. But how the fuck would you guys know, right? I mean, how would you know? So anybody going forward that asks me what my documentary is about, I'm going to shamelessly,
Direct them towards this episode.
exactly direct them towards this episode, and that's what it's going to be. So here we go. I'll start.
Please do.
I will start. So, the documentary, it's titled Sinking the Mothman. That's the title of this episode. sinking the Mothman, and that's because I was asked to work on just a 25-minute YouTube video, just kind of recanting Point Pleasant and the Mothman flap in Point Pleasant and the Silver Bridge collapse and whatnot. I'm not gonna get into too much detail about the start of it because it doesn't matter, but um so I was invited to go film during the Mothman Festival in 2019, and of course I agreed. I had never been into anything like this. I was working at Victoria's Secret at the time for the corporate office of Victoria's Secret.
Were you a mannequin?
Yeah, I was. I was. Um, I did a good job. No, but I did frequently grope the mannequins, like it was encouraged because we
I
didn't
do
work.
that too.
We didn't work in the store. It was the corporate office.
Right.
So, in order for us to really like know the product, like we'd have whole meetings of things that they're releasing and stuff like that. They would put them on mannequins, and we'd have to like go and like feel on it so we can like feel the material. And it was great. It was encouraged to grope the mannequins at my job. It was beautiful. But that's where when I learned about my attraction to mannequins. Anyway, um, so I worked at Victoria's Secret, and I agreed. I agreed to go to this, Mothman Fest. I'd never been, I'd never been to the Mothman Festival. And I was like, okay, sure. I was a Mothman skeptic. I don't buy that shit. Bigfoot, fuck yeah. Mothman, no, there's no way that's real. Biologically speaking, doesn't make sense, right? So I go, and I have the most fucking magical weekend, like very literally, like I've ever had in my entire life. And shit got weird. Shit got weird. And it was stuff that I couldn't explain. And especially for me, being the type of person that I was at the time, I was, very heavy atheist. Like I had no spirituality whatsoever, didn't believe in any of that. Everything was science based. Everything was science based. But things were happening that defied science. And, once I kind of started looking into those things that defied science, I learned that it's not that these things were defying science, it's that I was ignoring the science and what the possibilities were and what was out there. But things started getting strange, and the more I kind of started researching stuff, like my mind became more open to the idea of different aspects of life and science, and the more some of this stuff kind of fell in line and made sense. So I was speaking with the director of this documentary. Eventually he was like, well, he's like, I want you to work on this documentary with me, and I want to make it a feature like documentary. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, let's do that. So we started working on it together, but then shit started getting really real and, really heavy, really fast. So the,
With your investigation
with my,
of,
yeah, well, yeah, with the investigation. And, the first time anything huge had happened was I had just put a post out on social media, and I didn't have a social media following. Let me backtrack a little bit there. I wasn't, it's not like I was anybody. It's not like I was anybody. I had like my local group of friends on Facebook. I had like 200 followers on Twitter. I didn't know how to use Twitter. I didn't Twitter. I didn't know how to tweet or twat or whatever. And I didn't have Instagram at all at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, so I just put out a Facebook post to my Facebook friends. I was like, hey, has anybody seen the Mothman? Sure enough, I got a bite. A person that I used to work with at the movie theater. She's like, yeah, I've seen it. And my mom's seen it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I get together with them and I speak with them on we had like a phone call, and they tell me their experiences. The girl, my coworker, she said they lived in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and where they lived like just outside of town. So it was kind of a rural enough area to have like some tree coverage. And she said she saw it standing kind of right at the tree line, but he didn't really move. He just kind of stood there. And then her mom, she said she's seen it twice. The first time she saw it, it was just walking down the street, with his wings and all hanging out, just walking down the street. And he just turned the corner and walked on. And then the second time she saw it, she said she saw it in her garage, hanging upside down, sleeping like a bat. And she just backed out of the garage and, went back into the house and was like, well, I'm not going anywhere today. She came out a couple hours later, it was gone. But that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the part that got me, okay? The part that got me was that she starts going, well, have you heard about Helltown? I was like, what? She's like, Helltown, Ohio. And she starts telling me about it. Helltown, Ohio is Boston Township. It was reclaimed by the government basically in the 70s. They what they wanted to do was have all the residents move out and have them turn that little town into part of the nature reserve that's up there. They just wanted to buy it and turn it into part of the nature reserve. Okay, so lots of spooky stuff surrounding this place. People still go there all the time. They're like, oh, it's super haunted. Oh, there's Satanists. Oh, there's this, that, and the other. Typical spooky town stuff. Which is neat, but what's going on there? Probably not a whole lot. But there are some things, and they're not talked about. Excuse me, I've been talking all fucking day. So anyway, so she's telling me, she's like, well, you need to talk to I got this friend, and you need to talk to him. I'm like, why? She was like, I'm just gonna call him. I'm gonna invite him over, and I want you to show up and talk to him. I'm like, okay. So I did that. So I go to her house with her friend, and I meet this man, and he's an older gentleman, and he proceeds to tell me that, basically, we start talking about it. He tells me, well, I worked for Parks and Rec in the 1970s, and when I remember when they closed Helltown, and when they did, they would want us to go and kind of survey the area because the townspeople were pissed. Like they were very upset that they were just forced to move, and understandably so. He's like, so, we were worried. Our biggest worry at the time was wildfires. We didn't want anybody to try to burn the town down in anger and then catch the rest of the fucking nature reserve on fire. So, understandably so. We don't have wildfires here in Ohio, but, forest fires, whatever. Um, so he said one day he was out and he was patrolling and he was just right outside of the town. I mean, all they really did was walk through the woods all day. Loved that job. But he was just right outside of the town and he happened upon something he had never seen before. And it was like a huge, huge chain link fence. And he's like, okay. So, but he walks up on it and he says it's noisy. There's stuff going on. He didn't know what was going on. And he walks up to it and in the middle of this fence are men dressed up in like military garb, and they're kind of in a circle around this thing. And this
Are they
thing,
jerking off on it?
what's that? They are.
Are
They're
they
jerking
jerking
off on
off
it.
on it?
Yes. They are. It's
They're
a big
playing Icky
circle jerk.
Cookie, right?
It's a great, yes.
Eh,
They are.
The
Exactly.
last the
Exactly.
last one to
Techno.
finish on
See?
the cookie has to eat the cookie. Yeah, I've played that before.
Oh my gosh. Played that before. Stop.
All
And I
right.
believe that that's 100% a true story. So you don't have to go into detail. It's fine. We know now.
Sometimes it's called soggy biscuit. It depends on the
It
group of
is.
dudes you're with.
That's true.
It's either icky cookie or soggy. I guess soggy biscuit's probably the English version of it because they call cookies biscuits.
Oh, that's true. Well, you could use biscuits
If
instead of
Ted Lasso has taught us anything,
Okay.
and I'm putting my mic back up now. Please continue with your story about what happened in Helltown. I am listening with much interest.
Okay. All right. I'll
All
keep
right, all
going.
right, all right, I'm good.
No, that was good. That was good. So anyway, so no, they weren't drinking off on this thing. They probably should have been. But instead, anyway, so in the middle of these military men is this creature, and the guy, he said the only way I can describe it to you is that it looked like Jeepers Creepers. And I'm like, oh, let me know what the Jeepers Creepers, what the creeper looks like. He's, just a man with wings, right? And he said that, meanwhile, it's like attacking them somehow. But he didn't really know how because it wasn't physical, it wasn't touching them, but he knew that it was attacking them. And so he was like, oh, well, nope, all right. And so he, noped the fuck up out of there and left. And never went back to work after that, never again. Has not been out to the woods ever since, does not want to see that thing ever again. He was scared to even talk about it because he didn't want to attract it. And I didn't know what to think at the time when I had started, and at that point, I had thought that I had a theory, and my theory had involved the government, okay, with this Mothman creature and other things, because I kind of had a timeline of events that were all kind of made sense together, and I got in my car. And I was scared. I was genuinely fucking scared. I was like, I was just told something that I'm not supposed to know. And I don't know what to do with that. I've always heard, stories of the Men in Black. I've heard of people just outright fucking or shady suicides or whatever. And I was scared. I was legitimately scared. And
That's something that, and this is to be completely serious for a minute. I think
yeah,
people that don't that maybe follow these cases but don't get directly involved with them, that's something that they don't appreciate the weight of, is when you do when you do find things out that other people that people aren't supposed to know, that there's a very tangible weight to that information
Oh
that
yeah.
you then begin carrying around with you.
Oh yeah.
And having guilt or paranoia come from this stuff, I mean, just to, like, not to turn this into a fucking masturbation joke again, but I'm gonna go there. This
Please.
isn't a joke though, this is completely serious, and hopefully this metaphor
Masturbation is always serious, first of all.
right.
Okay, go on.
But so I worked in a field for a very long time where there would be where you work on the overnights and stuff, right? And I ran I mean, I guess I've talked about this before. I ran an engineering department at a hotel for a while.
Sure.
And I had a I worked for people for a long time, and then I became the boss, and I had people work for me for a long time. And one of the things that I made sure that I did when I was the boss is I never surprised anybody, right? Whenever like I came by on the weekends, or I had to run up to my office, if I went out drinking after work and then swung by to grab something from my desk, I knew that I was walking in on somebody that thought that they were supposed to be alone for the shift. And I never just barged through the door. Now, some people did that because they'd like to see what the other guy was doing. Not me, right? I have no intention of surprising anybody doing anything,
Sure.
right? I would always jiggle the fuck out of those keys on my way up the stairs and stomp my feet so everybody heard me coming. And I never walked through that door and found anybody with their pants around their ankles. Okay. And I think I did that for a reason, because I didn't want one of those situations to happen. I didn't want to walk through that door and find some dude jerking off. What's the fucking point in that? Right? That doesn't do any of us any good. Now things are weird between me and this other guy. He's got some shit he's got to live with because he knows that I saw him pulling his crank at work. Now I got some shit I got to live with because every time I look at this guy, I'm going to think about the time I caught him pulling his crank at work. It doesn't benefit anybody,
You're right.
right?
Yeah.
So, whenever I come, boom, 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 here comes Pat jiggling the keys. You hear me? All right, I'm coming through the door. You got 30 seconds. And I'd rather come through the door and have him laughing and say, come on in, I'm not doing anything. Fine. All right. I'd rather have that happen than I bust through the fucking door and see you doing whatever you're doing.
So did
And
you ever find anybody pulling their pod then? Is that
no, but I had people walking on me pulling my pud.
oh, God.
So
They should have jiggled their keys. I mean,
exactly. And I'm paying it forward. No, I'm kidding. That never happened. I had someone catch me watching The Wire once or something, but whatever. Um, but no, so that's kind of, and I think that that's something very, very grounded that most people hearing that story can identify with, right? And I
yeah.
think that if you multiply it times a million, that's kind of what happens when you're investigating these cases,
Oh yeah.
or researching this phenomenon, and somebody tells you something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Is
oh
that
yeah.
suddenly now you have gone from being a spectator to an active participant in this story, and you now have information that you're walking around with inside your head that maybe means nothing to nobody, or maybe means a lot to the wrong people.
Yeah.
And that's being friends with you for the past year and a half, and just kind of hearing about your work on this thing, I know that that's something that collects over time.
Oh, it definitely does. Well,
you
and
know
it does. And I mean, with this, especially me being so fresh, really, like you said,
nothing about, I would never use the word fresh to describe any
very,
aspect of you.
very fresh, very, very fresh and new and
You're
shiny.
very soiled.
But now I'm very soiled now.
You're
Yes,
very sullied.
I guess I still was then, but um, just in other ways. But anyway, when I did when I went and talked to the guy, I'll tell you, it wasn't like he didn't know. We didn't meet up with them to come meet me and tell his story. I showed up, and the mom looks at him. We're all just enjoying, just talking about nothing. And the mom looks at him and she goes, "Why don't you tell her the story?" And he went fucking stark white. He didn't want to tell me the story. He knew who the fuck I was. Some weird, crazy, redheaded goth weirdo. He didn't know who the fuck I was. And he's like, uh, and he kind of played dumb. He's like, what, what? I'm not sure which one. What are you talking about? But he knew instantly. what story she was talking about. And it's just, and that was again probably my first time. That was absolutely the first time I had ever spoken with someone who was genuinely afraid of what they had experienced. Someone that had actual fear and didn't, and of course I wasn't ready for that. I didn't know what the fucking story was. I had no clue. So but I had left. I went to my best friend's house and I quit that documentary that night. I called the director. I said, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. I have a child that I have to think about, and if what I think is right, like, this is a big deal. And he's like, well, that sucks, but I understand. And I went to my best friend's house and I sat there and I'm like, I gotta tell you something, but we gotta put all our phones in the house and go outside. And she's like, why? And so, I told her, I was just like, just do it. She's like, okay. So we went outside, we talked about it. We talked about it. And she was like, but you know what? The thing is that it's not, she said, if you really think that this is something this big, then it's not really about you anymore. And you kind of have a responsibility to share it. And she's right. I mean, of course I didn't have to, but I knew what she meant, and, that took me a couple days to process. And then, well, here I am. So, eventually the documentary with the original director fell through, and I had decided that when I agreed to work on this thing, I would follow through with it as well. I wasn't going to not make it at that point because just in like a 3 month period, my life had changed so drastically that there was nothing else in this world that I was meant to do except for make this documentary, at minimum. And the more I've kind of fallen into the rabbit hole, it's been rewritten a couple of times, but it's pretty solid where it's at now. Just because the theories were changing. Again, it's an ongoing investigation. And I know some people get really frustrated sometimes with where this documentary is at and why it's not out yet. But when you have an ongoing investigation and you get information constantly, it's hard to keep up because there's other bullshit things like making sure you have the correct equipment and then getting the correct shot and then editing that shot together. And that's bullshit. But meanwhile, you're coming upon new information all the time and you're like, do I add this in here? So now it's turned into this whole thing, right? And so we've got this first documentary, and we're not just making, at the same time, we're not just making the one documentary because we're out investigating other stuff too. We're making multiple documentaries and they all tie in together. Hence the name Sinking the Mothman. It's about the Mothman. You're going to get Mothman history, but what you're going to get on top of Mothman history is how Mothman is related to other shit out there. And then what you're going to get later on down the line when the next one comes out is how that shit is related to the Mothman and how it's related to other things. And it's just going to be a trail, basically, of high strangeness. So, where are we at right now? So, I announced a couple, probably about a month or two ago, probably 2 months ago, that I was going to release this book. And I'm not going to tell you what it's about because I'm an asshole. But um, so now I've got a book with it, and now it's formed into a documentary, and now it's just gotten kind of off the rails. But that's okay. We pretty much have a date. This thing is going to be done by fall of 2022, and the book is going to come out by spring of 2022. So that's where we're at currently.
Are you going to do Nanu Remu this November with me?
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
It'll be a lot of fun.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
You give me them deets. You give me them deets, and we'll talk about it. But we'll see. But yeah, so where we're at right now. I just spent the weekend in West Virginia. I have party girl voice so bad too. I had a great time. But we just went back to West Virginia, and we have to go back at least one more time. Well, probably more than that. Honestly, I will never get away from West Virginia now. At this point, I'm so invested in it. I've accepted that for the rest of my life, I will be married to the Mothman, and that's just going to be the way it is. That's fine. But as far as the documentary itself goes, we have to go back to West Virginia one more time, and then we have to go to Chicago, and then it's all post. And I'm not fucking adding anything else into it. That's what a sequel's for. So that's where we're at. But anyway, yeah, that's the gist. I'll stop talking. I'll let you have the floor for a second. What do you?
Fuck, I don't have any more jerk off jokes to make.
Oh, God damn it!
I know.
Terrible.
Well, no, I definitely like. I think that's something that every creative person struggles with is when is it done?
Right.
And because if you're a perfectionist, it's never done. I mean, look at George Lucas; he's still releasing cuts of fucking Star Wars.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, like there's a very natural tendency to keep fucking with the soup, because you want it to be perfect. And I think that's when outside opinions come in, and that's why you don't want to make a movie. As someone who's made lots of movies over the years, you don't make a movie by committee. There needs to be a captain of the ship. You
Right.
can listen to other people. You can have a council of advisors. You can have other people whose opinion you listen to. But at the end of the day, you really do need one kind of voice, directing what's going to happen next, and kind of
Well, and you're right about that. And other things have come out since because again, this whole thing became obliterated in 2020 right when the pandemic
sure,
started, right? And
sure.
so it wasn't, I had to make I had to make my own project at that point and decide what I was going to do with it and what direction I was going to go with it. Because this person that I was working with originally, again, they didn't want all of this. They just wanted it to be a fucking retelling of what happened in Point Pleasant.
Well, I think there's value to that too. Like, so this is something that I'm glad we're talking about this. Not just because it gives you a chance to talk about the documentary, but because this is honestly something that has been on my radar a lot recently. Um, Specifically because of the clubhouse stuff, because I spend a lot of time, although it feels like there hasn't been clubhouse rooms for the past
There
couple of
hasn't
weeks.
been a lot of
Okay,
clubhouse rooms
good. I
lately.
didn't know
Yeah.
if I was just not paying attention, or if it really activity kind of what there was a
Mm.
lull,
You've
which is
been too
fine.
busy pulling your pud.
But well, it's not gonna pull itself. But I feel like listening to those guys, the small town monster people, some of the other
Sure.
people in there that make documentaries, hearing them talk about it, and listening, not really kind of answering back too much, because I just hearing other people talk about their process. It's kind of why we do like people who make stuff, is because I find value in just listening to what other creative people have to say, and like um their approaches to it and their techniques. They Small Town Monsters puts out a lot of stuff,
They do.
and
Yeah.
they put out a lot of kind of short form material.
They do.
And I think that, as somebody who has made, I mean, after the 48-hour film project next month, I don't even know if it's going to be like 13 or 4, who's made a whole shit ton of short films and no full lengths. I'm very, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I like the fact that I've done that. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I wish that I had concentrated all that time and effort onto one feature length film, or two or three feature length films, as opposed to making over a dozen short form films. But one of the benefits of doing the dozen short form films is that I've got to tell over a dozen stories about a dozen different topics,
Sure.
and I've got to explore different interests of mine. I get to write about different interests of mine. Like, there is a movie about werewolves, and there is a movie about alien abduction, and there is a movie about autoerotic asphyxiation, and there is a movie about divorce, and there is a movie about losing a child, and there is a movie about Italian Satanists. It's like there was a musical, and there was a whole bunch of other things, that little things that I got to tell 12-minute stories about. And as much as it kind of lacks the wallop of doing a three 90-minute movies, um I do find value in that approach somehow. And to see documentary people take
Yeah.
the same approach, where like Small Town Monsters will spend a half an hour on this, or I don't know who was in the room. Somebody was talking about they're doing a documentary about Iowa, and someone was like, "Well, what's going on in Iowa?" He's like, "Oh, you'll see."
Oh.
And
Oh, we will.
I'm not throwing shade on that guy, because I forget who he was, and he could be someone that listens to the show. But like, I just thought it was interesting. Like, no, this motherfucker wants to make a documentary about Iowa, and you know what? That's what he's doing. And
That's what
if
he's
it's
doing, right?
25 minutes long, then it's 25 minutes long.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Well,
that's it. If he's got 25 minutes worth of a story to tell about Iowa, then goddamn it, that's what he's going to do. He's going to release it on YouTube. And unfortunately, it's probably not unfortunately, good for him. I mean,
good
seriously, good
for
for
him.
him.
Absolutely
But
good
it'll
for him.
probably get more views than all my shit combined. So, like,
I mean, you might be surprised. I'll be honest with you. I have until very recently have always felt very intimidated by the small town monsters folk because
I
they
wouldn't.
well, they
I mean,
are
no, they're cool. They're
they're no,
cool.
they're good people. I've since then I've met them. I've hung out with Seth Breedlove. We got drunk together. He's funny. Most of them. I think I've gotten drunk with. I like them all. They're great people. But initially I was like, well, fuck, man. Here I am trying to make series of documentaries, multiple documentaries, and that's what I want for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do is investigate this stuff and then document it so that I can share the information with people, the information I find with people. So, they're doing that and they're doing it quick, man. They're fucking pushing these movies out like I've never seen.
Well,
And so, hold on.
okay,
So, I'm like, okay. But then I go back and I watch them and they're good. I mean, they're great production value, right? They got good researchers, right? They're doing a good job. The thing is, though, is that the only thing that they're really doing is just retelling the shit that we already know. So of course that's easy pickings. If I just wanted to throw a documentary out there, I just give you the history. You're gonna get more than that with sinking the Mothman. You're gonna get the investigation. You're gonna get the fun parts. You're gonna get yeah, you're gonna get some history because that is a big part of it. Obviously, if there were no history, then it wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't exist or whatever be relevant. But you're gonna get other stuff and things that people have never seen before. I do have stuff in it that people haven't seen. Is it huge groundbreaking evidence? Does it prove anything? No, but one of these days it will. It'll help, get to the
right.
bigger, it fills in the bigger picture. And, so that's the difference is that they're not really doing anything else. So,
Well, I think okay, a couple things. Number one, I was not trying to throw shade at them at all. I mean, I make fun of stuff or whatever if I
oh,
said
no, I
something
didn't
that
think
was
you were.
joking.
No, I didn't think you
Yeah, that's just because that's the way I talk. Like I ain't fucking casting dispersions on what they make. I would love to collaborate with them at some point. All these people come to Chicago to shoot content, and like I understand that everybody knows me, but if you're listening to this show and you have any intention of coming into my fucking city to film something, give me a call. Like you know what I mean? Like, let's hang out. Like, I'll go out and film with you. I'll drive you around. I'll show you the different spots or whatever. I'll be your local tour guide. Like, don't
Sure,
it
sure.
just? I'm not saying you have to. It's not like I'm the mayor of Chicago, but like, you're gonna come here to film content. Like, you got a boy that's native that knows everything and that doesn't think you're nuts. I might not be
Right,
a bad person to drop a line to.
right,
Um,
right.
so
Because, and they
having
should.
that said, but yeah, I think their approach is more as established fact based, research or not. I don't know if you can really say fact because all this stuff is just kind of you're
Well, they're always
listening to
very
different
popular.
stories.
I mean, everybody knows who they are in the community. You know what I mean? Like they're starting to be the bigger names now, and that's great. I'm good for them. I'm happy.
Right?
I'm glad. But the thing is now is that it's not like I said. I used to think that they were my direct competitors. They're not.
No.
And in this field, you don't have direct competitors. You
Right.
don't. And I think a lot of people do still sit in that mindset that you do, but the fact of the matter is that we're all researching the same fucking thing. Whether or not we got different theories on it or, different takes, I mean, that's a whole another ball game. It doesn't matter. We're not going to discover anything unless we work together and put our research together and again stop viewing each other as competition. It's not competition. Do you think fucking scientists sit in the lab and they're like, oh, I'm competing with my scientist on my team that's working on the same fucking thing that I am? Not really. Maybe on
Well,
like an egotistical level, but not enough to where they wouldn't work with them still.
yeah. There's always gonna be competitive assholes, but I don't think it
Like
needs to
you can have
do
friendly
that.
competition. I like
Yeah.
that. I'm
I mean,
very competitive.
and I always sometimes bring this stuff back to like the band framing reference because that's something that I did for a long time and I'm familiar with. So it's like do our bands competing against each other? Yeah, like you may play on the same you may play on like a show together and like a bill or whatever, and you may be friends and like oh yeah let's we're putting together a show at the Metro and you guys play and we'll play and okay cool, but you're sitting there with your arms crossed watching them play and you're like
Right.
all right, and then when someone else like let's say there's another band that you play with and you guys do shows together and then they get asked by a bigger company to open for somebody and you're like why were we asked to play that show blah blah blah,
Yeah.
like there's always pettiness I think amongst
Right.
creative people,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of like hey you can feel that way sometimes and you can whatever, but it's different, I think, when you act on it and you try to sabotage people. Like, I always say that spite is a very powerful motivator, and the desire to be the best and the desire to prove certain people wrong can, I know, definitely with me, has propelled me to work harder on things than I would have if I just felt that I had no competition or I was,
Oh, absolutely,
so yeah,
absolutely.
that's all good stuff, but you never want to sabotage anybody.
Well,
Like,
and
you
like
never want to.
another big part of it that I don't feel like I discuss enough is that going back to just kind of where this started, like I don't have any I have no film history, period. It's never caught my interest to pick up a camera and start filming anything. Like, I don't have a background in that at all. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And I've had to learn everything completely on my own. It's not like I had a bunch of money to throw at this. I didn't. No, not a single person has funded this except for me. Well, some people have bought some things here and there, but I've never had a kick. I don't have a Kickstarter for it. Nobody's
Right,
paying for the travel. That's all me. It's all coming out of my dime, and it's all again, everything that I'm learning. I'm learning how to do completely on my own, and you know, it's been tough because I didn't even get a smartphone. I'm not kidding. I didn't even get a smartphone until like 2018. I really didn't. And
uh,
because I'm just not tech savvy and I've had to learn how to do it all. Now, I'm very good at learning. That's my thing is that I'm really good at it. So I've done okay. It's just that I never had an interest. I never had an interest in social media or anything. I used to hate social media. Like I'm that person that like I hang out with people and I don't look at my phone. Like I really try really hard not to look at my phone because I believe in being present in the moment and things like that. So it's become difficult because then like some of this weird shit that happens, um, in my surrounding everyday life, it's not like I have a camera on me at all times because and or rolling at least at all times to document these things. So like something will happen. And I'm like, well, fuck, of course, of course. We said it so many times over the weekend. I'm like, listen, everybody needs to film. Whatever. I don't give a fuck if it's your potato phone. Like everybody needs to just be filming all the time so that we won't miss anything. And then like something's we'd have some really deep conversations. Somebody would go off on a really good rant and nobody fucking filmed it because we're just hanging out shooting the shit. And it's like, well, fuck, that would have been great to put in that was good. And none of us are actors. We're just people. So, going back and refilming it, it's not completely out of the question. It just isn't going to hit like it did. And, and I want it to be genuine. So I mean, just even like the technical issues that we've had with it. When I filmed this UFO, finally fucking filmed a UFO. I see UFOs all the time, guys, all the time. I see them all the time, and I finally filmed one. I was so happy. I'm disappointed because I didn't have my zoom lenses with me to get a better view of it. It just looks like a light in the sky, but for me, it was big because I've never gotten to film one before. So it's that, like I said, that's another thing that's not really considered. I'm not a filmmaker. I mean, I am now, but I had no background in it. I had no interest in it, had never any type of, artistic bone in my body. I tell people all the time, I'm not an artist. I consider myself more of a scientist than anything. And that's just what I am, and that's what I'm doing. But that's why you should watch it because it is genuine. We're not there. There's a show. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but there's a big show a lot of people respect within the community, and they they fake a lot. They don't fake a lot of stuff. It's just that something happens and they'll reshoot it and shoot it again. I mean, they do it in a creative way, right? And so it's not genuine. Now, of course, it has high production value and it looks good, but it's not genuine. It's not genuine research. It's not You're not getting these actual reactions or things that are happening in real time or what have you. And you know we're not going to have that. Not that we don't have good production value because we have both. We have both. It's good. It's a genuine take on this stuff as well as something that looks good. It's not going to look shitty. I'm not going to let it look shitty. Is it going to look like an HBO documentary? Well, I hope so, but probably not because I don't have HBO documentary money. So, unless HBO wants to sponsor the documentary, then please. But anyway, so that's where we're coming from with it. But right now, I think that I'm in a good spot. It's not that things aren't still happening. It's not that the investigation's not still going on. It's just that as the director of this thing, I had to decide what my stopping point was going to be and
Right.
where the next step is going to be. We're already working on, like I said, other documentaries. We've already filmed stuff for future documentaries, and we already know what the next one is going to be about. And, you know, so, and the next one's going to be about areas, high concentrated areas of high strangeness. So, and then we're going to deep dive into some more monsters. But with this, like I said, we're pretty much there unless something fucking monumental, unless the Mothman comes and shakes my hand himself. We are pretty much getting ready to wrap up and do post and get it out there. And I don't really know how long post production on anything takes, so I am going to say that it's the fall of 2022 because I think
Yeah.
that's probably plenty of time, but it will be feature length. So what kinds of things have we found? Is I think a lot of people ask about, evidence and things like that. I have quite a few exclusives. I have people that have never publicly come out with their experiences before, who have chosen to lend it to this documentary to come out with that stuff. I do have footage of some strange things, nothing crazy, just weird noises, weird happenstances, weird circumstances. I have a lot of my own personal experiences, but not just mine. The entire crew, which I'll tell you, there's only 3 of us officially on the crew, but there are other people that have come in and out of this thing and worked on it. But everybody that has worked on it has their own story to tell ever since working on it. We kind of have this theory that stuff like this sort of spreads like a disease, and it's there's definitely anecdotal evidence there. Um, I've physically now I have gone to the spot where Woodard Derenberger met Injured Cold, and nobody else has ever been there before. It's not been, I mean, people roughly know where it's at, but I know exactly where it's at. I went at the exact hill that they sat up on and looked over the city.
Was that this weekend?
That was this weekend. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Sure was. And, of course, Tanya Derenberger herself is going to be sharing her experiences. And I've been very lucky with how forthcoming she's been and how great she's been with wanting to share those things. Um, and yeah, and then plus other people. Tobias Whalen's going to be in it, talking about the Lake Michigan Mothman. It's going to be it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. But where are we at right now? I think actually I was just on it's not out yet. Obviously you guys will know when it comes out, but I was on Emily and Tobias's show. They have a podcast called Investigating the Impossible. And Tobias asked, "Well, what do you think we're dealing with the Mothman?" Um I can't tell you what it is. Can't tell you who he is. But what I can tell you is that whatever it is not terrestrial, so it's nothing like Bigfoot, right? It's not an actual animal that lives here. It's intelligent, and for whatever reason, when you start when you have an experience with the Mothman, it's very, very, very personal, and not just because you saw something that normal people don't see, but just because it's life changing. It really is. It's very life altering, whether that be good or bad. I haven't really found evidence for either, but that's what we know about a lot of these instances of high strangeness in this regard, is that they're typically very personal experiences. And again, I feel like people are going to watch the documentary and it's going to lead you on a different path of how you view things in the world. And because you have that new scope that you're viewing it from, it's going to get very personal for you too. So, and I hope it does. But it all sounds so cryptic, but I'm super excited. I'm really excited to show people.
What, me? Like me personally? Or like the audience when you say you?
You and the audience and everybody.
Oh, okay.
And everybody. Probably you personally. I don't need to change your mind though. Personally, you've had experiences of high strangeness, so you already know.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
What do you mean you guess? I guess. I guess so. I just saw aliens. It's cool.
Oh,
It was
whatever.
sweet. It was no big deal. That's Pat said that to me. It's no big
That's
deal.
that's imposter syndrome in full fucking gear.
Fucking full blown imposter syndrome. It really is. You know what? I was gonna say that. I was gonna say you already know, but you don't accept it yet. But no, I wasn't gonna throw you under the bus like that. But you'll see it one day. Um, but anyway, so yeah, that's the gist of the documentary. It's not, I say it's about the Mothman, but it's not just about the Mothman. And
It's about the Mothman we met along the way.
yeah,
Right.
well,
It's
yeah.
about the journey, not the destination.
It is, and that's why it's not going to be just one documentary because it can't be. There's too much, and it was way too much. But this first one's going to be exclusively around the Mothman, how I got into it, more details about that, if you give a fuck at all. It is interesting, I promise. And obviously the personal experience that we've had with it, and then other people's personal experiences with it, and how that ties into other things. We're going to go into more history, things that people don't talk about. This thing, especially people that have seen it know, but then everybody else on the internet's just like, oh, Mothman, he was there in the 60s and now he's back in Chicago. He never left. He never reappeared and disappeared, and he's always been around. That This thing's always been around. And it's just that they didn't call it the Mothman. They don't call it the Mothman everywhere. They haven't called it the Mothman for thousands and thousands of years. It just happened to be the Mothman during the 60s, flap in West Virginia.
That's how it got
Um,
branded, and that's what stuck with
right.
it for the past 40 years, 60
Forever.
years or whatever. But yeah, in the grand scheme
Right.
of
Now
things,
it's
it's
the
a much
Mothman. Doesn't
humanity
look
is much
anything like a
longer. Yeah.
moth. Doesn't look anything like it's actually fucking horrifying looking. So
Yeah.
there's that. But anyway, so that's got any questions? You want to throw any questions? I think I covered everything pretty well, actually.
Right. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, this is kind of what brought us together, and hopefully, it's not what tears us apart in the end. But no, it's if you need an editor, let me know. I mean, that's why I'm still waiting around. Like,
I put the documentary out. It's just an
uh,
hour and a half of Pat pulling spud. Ooh.
dude, that would be fucking 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's like 30 different clips, but no. I mean,
It's just
why would
three
we do
minutes
that?
on a loop.
Yeah.
Just constantly. Like, this is it, Pat. This is what this was. I synced the Mothman to your balls. Um,
I was sinking the Mothman.
Thinking,
I thought you meant
thinking,
sinking like SINK, like you put weights on him and he fell into the river and sunk to the bottom. You're
ooh,
saying sinking
like
like
synchronicity.
yes, okay.
Thinking the Mothman, yeah.
Right. I wonder if any of our listeners made that mistake as well or
Think,
if it's just
well, they
me.
shouldn't because they read the title
Oh,
of the
okay. So yeah,
episode. So,
gotcha.
I mean, if they do, I don't know. I'm not. How
No.
did you not know the name of the documentary this whole time? You've never known the name of the documentary?
I don't know if you told
Wow,
me.
I'm sure I did.
Well, okay,
There's a
I'm sorry.
poster out and everything.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So you didn't know I
Yes.
made a fucking werewolf movie? Like, talk about us
Don't
not
call,
paying attention
don't
to each
call
other's
me out
fucking
on that.
shit. Yeah, I
You're right.
remember
I
that.
didn't know.
I
You're
read
right.
those
Yeah.
text
Now we're
messages.
now we're even. now we're even.
It's all good. It's all good.
But no, yeah, no, sinking the Mothman, because then the next thing's going to be sinking the Bridgewater Triangle, or sinking the I don't know, whatever it is we're working on at the time.
It's good. I think I mean honestly, like as your friend and creative collaborator with the podcast, and obviously I have a behind the scenes view of everything else. I think it's good that you just start putting the shit out. You know what I mean? And not letting things toil and like, oh, is it done? Is it done? It's the pie's done when you put it on the windowsill. Just fucking put it out there and move on to the next one,
Right.
and you learn from it, and you go from there. And the first one's going to be good, and the second one's going to be better because the lessons that you learn on the first one, and the third one's going to be even better than that. But you don't get to the second and third one until you put out the first one. So you just got to put out the first one.
Well, I need
And
to stop being hard on myself, right, is the problem. And
right, and no, granted,
yeah,
hey, listen, we all got thrown a fucking curveball this past year with COVID. Like that's
yes,
and
yeah, and
everybody
it's still
understands
going.
that.
Is the fucking problem? Is like it's still, and that's another thing I tell people is like, you got to understand, guys, that I started this right when COVID started. And
Yeah.
so, it's made it difficult. I'm immunocompromised, so it's hard to make that judgment call. Is this worth going out and possibly getting COVID over? I don't know.
Well, and then like this weekend, like, look, events get canceled,
Right.
or people don't. People get weird and they don't want to go out, or I'm gonna try to stay in for the next couple weeks, or I mean, all that stuff is perfectly reasonable and understandable. And that's the world that we live in right now, especially when you're talking about a volunteer film crew this isn't their livelihood. They're not getting a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking money thrown at them to do this. You're asking people to volunteer their time and their resources, and to a certain extent their health, to go out and do this stuff, and
Right.
it's gonna create a setback for anybody. I don't give a fuck who you are.
Right.
Like, dude, like, what just got shut down? Like, Ant-Man, like the Hollywood movies get shut down because of this shit.
Yeah.
The Mission
Right.
Impossible ones, like, don't. Yeah, of course, your documentary is not to minimize it, but of course you're gonna hit snags, But you're overcoming them, which is the good part, and you're nearing the finish line, which is why we're devoting an episode to this.
Yes, we're
You
we're
know,
so close, and I think that's why, I just wanted people to know. Well, for one, again, people ask it all the time, what is it about? It's about a lot of things, but now you listen to this episode, now you know what it's about, because I directed you here to listen to it. So don't ask me again. I'm just kidding. I'm super friendly. But you know, I thought that it would be important because a lot of people know me as this person making this documentary and have for almost 2 years, and there's still no documentary. Well, I mean, there you go. There is a couple of reasons why, but it's coming. Again, for me, this was very personal. I could never forgive myself if I didn't finish it, and I'm so excited because it is very good, and I'm very proud of where we're at. So
cool,
that's all I really have to say about it.
awesome. All right.
All right, guys. Well, with that being said, now ask me questions. By all means, that's fine. But with that being said, I will see you guys here next Wednesday.